Welcome to this 10-minute tutorial, and today I'm going to show you how to use a heat gun to remove paint off wood safely and easily, getting rid of those layers of unwanted paint and revealing the beautiful wood underneath. I'm currently renovating a Victorian house which has had many of its original features like the staircase handrails caked in white gloss paint. Not ideal, but I've tried all the ways to strip it off and get it back to the gorgeous original wood. Using a heat gun is one of the easiest and quickest ways I've found to do this, and it works on any wood surface from stairs to doors to furniture. I've also road tested paint strippers and seen how that measures up against a heat gun. You can watch that video right now on my channel for some messy but satisfying liquid paint stripper moments. But for now, let's get into the heat gun method. So first things first, of course you'll need a heat gun, a pair of gloves and a scraper tool. This is a really inexpensive bit of kit. This heat gun cost me around £15, so if you're looking for an affordable paint removal solution, this is definitely it. Now when it comes to using the heat gun, it is a very easy process. You want to turn the heat gun on. Yours may have several settings, so start on the lowest and switch to a higher setting if the paint isn't lifting easily. Direct the heat gun over the paint, one small area at a time, and move it up and down slightly to spread that heat around. It's sort of like an extremely powerful and hot hairdryer, so you don't want to hold it in one spot for too long as you could risk burning the wood, so do keep it moving. Then you should see the paint start to bubble slightly. This is a good sign, and that's when you know your paint is lifting and ready to scrape off. When it comes to removing the paint, I just used a flat scraper tool that isn't particularly sharp, so I don't scratch up the wood too much. And when scraping, keep your heat gun directed away from you so you don't burn yourself, but also keep it at a distance from the wood surface so you don't scorch that either. Now I'm scraping a fairly flat long handrail here, as you can see, but if you're removing paint from more detailed areas like panelling in an old door for example, then you may want to use something like a multi-tool scraper that has slightly sharper pointed edges for getting into any nooks and crannies. As you can see here, I'm just doing a small section at a time, working my way up the handrail and scraping back and forth in one direction, not all over the place, to minimise any scratches. It seems this handrail had just one layer of white gloss paint on it, lucky for me, so it's coming off fairly easily. If you have multiple layers of paint, you may just need to hold the heat gun on each patch a bit longer, or go back over each patch to lift it layer by layer. Now that sounds like a very long process, but what I do love about using a heat gun versus liquid paint stripper is that it is instant. You don't have to put on a stripper, leave it for 24 hours and then come back to it. You can just start and finish the job all at the same time, all in one day, which is very handy if you're renovating like me and have got a lot of other DIY tasks to be getting on with. And I'm showing you this in real time right now, not sped up, so you can really see the progress you make and how long that takes. Is it super speedy? No, but does it work and get the paint off? Absolutely. So depending on what you're removing paint from, you're going to want to set aside a good few hours for this job. Now I've had a lot of people ask me about lead paint, and no, this isn't a lead based paint, it's modern white gloss paint, so we are safe. But if you are concerned about lead paint in your home, you can buy a testing kit online to test it for lead. Heat gun methods are safer for non-lead paint, whereas liquid strippers are considered safer for lead paint, as the liquid contains and removes the lead paint, whereas as you can see here, the heat gun turns the paint into dry flakes, which you could then accidentally ingest, which you don't want to do if it's lead based. So do wear a mask when removing paint with a heat gun if you're worried about inhaling any of those flakes. And of course, protect your skin nearest to the heat gun by wearing gloves. These are simple general safety gloves with a latex covering, and I didn't get a hint of burn once. You will also want to protect your floors or any nearby surfaces if you don't want them to get damaged or covered in flakes of old paint. I wasn't worried here as everything is still very much in renovation mode, so there's nothing that could get any worse than it already is. Now we're moving up the handrail here, very happy with the results so far. We are right back to that gorgeous original dark wooden handrail. This staircase is over 130 years old, and while we've had to replace and rebuild some parts of it, like adding new spindles where old ones were too damaged to keep, I'm really happy that we've been able to retain so many parts of history here. One thing I will say is that stripping off the paint is just step one on the ladder to restoring a wooden feature like this. Heat guns or any paint stripper are never going to give you that final finish, so keep watching to see how we got this staircase looking back to its historic best in just a few more steps. Now, many heat guns come with a selection of nozzles or attachments which you can use to change the direction of the heat, or you can just use the heat gun as it is without an attachment. I personally like this one as it focuses the heat in one direct area, so you can just concentrate on getting one section at a time stripped, but it's totally up to you which attachment you use or don't use. Just don't try and change them when you've just used the heat gun, as it'll be very hot, so let everything cool down before you touch the nozzle. Now here you can see I've managed to tackle the top side of the handrail in quite a short space of time, but the job is not quite done yet. I've got to get into the sides and underneath this handrail, so I'm locked in for a while longer to get this handrail stripped. And again, the finish won't be perfect. You won't get every last little speck of paint off, but do not worry. Trust the process, because the step after this is going to sort out any stubborn bits of paint for you. If you're a DIY beginner, I would absolutely look at using a heat gun to strip paint. It is very beginner friendly, and as I mentioned, super cheap. And the beauty of a heat gun is that it's yours to keep for project after project. No buying a fresh tub of paint stripper every single time. I've done a lot of DIY in this house, everything from tiling to painting and beyond, and I would say that using a heat gun is absolutely entry level, so don't be scared of getting stuck into paint stripping if you are just getting started on your DIY journey. Now it's time to tackle this tricky newel post, and it's only tricky because it's curved and has detailed sections that I'm going to need to pick paint out of, but I'm still scraping back and forth in the same direction to strip that paint down and away, not scratching and scraping all over the place in all directions. If you notice a strong burning smell or the wood looking very dark in a specific patch, you may be holding the heat gun too close or on the wood for too long, and you may be burning the surface slightly. So just keep a good eye out for that and never hold the heat gun in one place for too long. You can see here I'm still scraping up and down, but I'm actually using the side of my scraper as it's easier to hold this way for this specific newel post, and the post seems to have a brown stain underneath the white gloss, so the wood is looking a bit stripy as I strip it. But again, we're not going for final finish here, and we're going to clean this all off very soon to create that lovely smooth finish. Speeding things up here, as you've probably got the gist of how to use a heat gun now, but still you can see how effective a heat gun is for going from a tough old top coat of paint back to bare wood all in one hit. And I'm so close to finishing this now. All in all, I'd say this all took me around 2 and a bit hours from start to finish, getting into all the detail on the newel post and underneath the handrail between each spindle, compared to liquid stripper that would take me around 30 minutes to apply, but would still require just as much scraping. I would pick a heat gun every time if I could. And in terms of cleanup, you can just vacuum up the dry old paint flakes, so while it does create a bit of mess, it's not too hard to clean up. And of course, before touching the heat gun to pack it away, do let it cool down fully and never let it rest on a surface that could get damaged from the heat or burn, like a plastic tabletop, for example. So that is everything stripped, and here's what we're left with after the heat gun paint removal process. Pretty darn good in comparison with what we started with. A 130-year-old staircase, absolutely covered in white gloss. You would never have known this dark, rich wood was hiding underneath all that. And you may be thinking, well, that's not perfect and I can still see some paint on it. And you'd be correct. Again, you are never going to get a clean, smooth finish just from paint stripper or a heat gun. That stuff's been on it for years, so it's not going to leave without a fight. So that's where the next stage comes in, sanding. You're going to want to grab yourself an electric detail sander for this, and depending on how much stubborn paint or imperfections you have to remove, you could either go for a high or low grit sandpaper. I'm using 180 grit here, so I don't damage the wood, but I do get those stubborn last bits of paint off, and you can really see the difference this makes. We are really back to the bare wood here already. And obviously this stair handrail is all wobbly and wiggly. We've got many repairs and more restoration to do, so do head over to my channel to see the full process of getting this back to its best in terms of function and the finished look. I'm getting right into the detail and tricky underneath areas of the handrail between each spindle. If you can't fit an electric sander into a more difficult area, I'd recommend the manual way. Grab yourself a bit of sandpaper in the same grit and go in with your hands. It is laborious but absolutely necessary to get an even finish all over. It also depends what you're trying to achieve. I'm going to be applying a wood stain to this handrail and black wood paint to the newel posts and spindles, so I'm not trying to get a completely clean, perfect looking wood finish. I'm just trying to get it smooth enough so that the paint and stain sits on top of it all nicely. And if you want any tips on how to paint a staircase, the spindles, a real wood handrail, I've got a whole video packed full of cheap and easy ways to get them looking amazing. And I've got the best paints that are going to be super hard wearing for everyday life and are so easy to apply. So do go and check that out. As you can see, the staircase is now coming back to life. No more cheap glossy finish, no more hiding the beauty of this hardwood handrail. We are well on our way to putting the spotlight back on the beautiful original features that are still standing in this house. And as I'm sure you'd agree, even though paint stripping isn't the quickest win, it is well worth the effort. Now, painting this staircase is just part of the restoration process, and this is the fourth part of a staircase in our Victorian home that we've had to restore. It has been quite the journey, let me tell you, but nothing beats taking something old and janky and transforming it into a beautiful feature once again. In fact, we had to work out a way to replace the newel cap for an authentic round one to match the rest of our staircases, and I'm sharing a video exactly on how we did that very soon, so do subscribe to my channel if you want to learn how to do that yourself too. And of course, you'll get the full end result to see how we took this staircase from gloss coated lost calls to rich mahogany beauty. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video helps you with your own restoration projects, and do head to my channel for more beginner friendly DIYs that pretty much anyone can try.